The markets are closed, but the business stories are just heating up. Hello, I'm Raine Musñgi. Catch up with us on Business Brief. Philippine inflation cooled to its lowest level in over a year. Our correspondent Sujin Kim filed this report.
Inflation in the country eased in February, dropping to 2.1% from 2.9% in January. The drop was primarily due to slower price increases in food and beverages, housing and utilities, and transport, which make up the largest share of household expenses. Vegetables, tubers, and bananas saw a sharp decline in inflation, dropping to 7.1% from 21.1% in January. Rice prices also fell faster, ranging from 48 to 64 pesos per kilo. Corn prices also slowed, dropping to 0.7% from 3.6% in January. However, not all food prices followed the downward trend. Meat inflation surged to 8.8%, with pork prices rising by 12.1%. But the government expects that implementing a maximum SRP on pork will help ease price pressures. Meanwhile, the transport sector, which had contributed to inflation in previous months, saw prices fall in February due to lower costs of fuel and reduced fares in some public transport services. However, sea transport recorded a sharp increase, with fares rising significantly. Further price declines could be expected within the coming months. However, risks remain, especially in the food sector, as well as the impact of extreme weather events.
Sujin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Meanwhile, U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has said President Donald Trump will probably announce a deal to reduce tariffs on Canada and Mexico on Wednesday. In an interview with Fox Business Network, Lutnick said both Canadians and Mexicans were calling on him to try to show that they'll do better on reducing the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. He made clear that he expected the U.S. tariffs to be lowered rather than paused. But Canada's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Melanie Joly, told the BBC's Newsnight that her office had not been contacted about the plan. Sources tell the BBC Lutnick did have a call with Ontario Premier Doug Ford and that he had delivered a warning about Canadian retaliation and what was seen as personal attacks against Trump. Earlier on Tuesday, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau slammed Trump's sweeping tariffs on his country and vowed to conduct a relentless fight to protect its economy.
Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal, but Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do. We're going to choose to try to buy Canadian products and forego bourbon and other classic American products. And yeah, we're probably going to keep booing the American anthem. But let me tell Americans, we're not booing you. We're not booing your teams. We're not booing your players. We're booing a policy that is designed to hurt us. And we're insulted. And we're angry. But we're Canadian, which means we're going to stand up for each other. We're going to fight. And we're going to win.
Mexico will unveil retaliatory tariffs against the United States on Sunday. President Claudia Sheinbaum announced on Tuesday, condemning the U.S. tariff hike as unjustified. Sheinbaum, who had called for temperance, serenity, and patience ahead of the tariff enforcement, reaffirmed that Mexico would not tolerate subordination or foreign intervention. She also accused Washington of violating the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement and rejected White House claims linking her government to organized crime, calling them offensive and baseless. The 25% U.S. tariffs, which took effect at midnight between Monday and Tuesday, have already impacted Mexico's financial markets. The Mexican peso depreciated nearly 1% Tuesday, reaching $20.90 per U.S. dollar in interbank trading. Analysts attribute the decline to concerns over escalating trade tensions, warning that further U.S. tariff hikes could follow. Asia-Pacific markets were mostly higher Wednesday as investors assessed China growth and inflation targets amid U.S. tariffs escalating global trade tensions weighing down sentiment. Australia's ASX 200 fell 0.7%. Australia's economy expanded 1.3% year-on-year in the fourth quarter, beating expectations of 1.2% from economists polled by Reuters. Japan's Nikkei added 0.33%, while South Korea's Kospi rose over 1%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng advanced 1.65%, while mainland China's CSI 300 picked up 0.3%. Investors are also focused on China's two sessions, an annual parliamentary gathering, the meeting of its top legislature, National People's Congress, kickstarting Wednesday. China on Wednesday set its GDP growth target for 2025 at around 5%. The country has also lowered its inflation expectations to around 2%. Meanwhile, New Zealand Central Bank's Governor Adrian Orr has resigned after 7 years and will complete service at the end of the month, March 31st. America is back. That statement coming from U.S. President Trump as he addressed Congress for the first time since returning to power. He calls his first month in office the most successful of any U.S. presidency in history. Trump also defended his crackdown on federal bureaucracy, his trade war with Canada, Mexico, and China, and his America First policy. The 78-year-old Republican billionaire says he was just getting started on his radical plans to reshape the United States.
6 weeks ago, I stood beneath the dome of this Capitol and proclaimed the dawn of the golden age of America. From that moment on, it has been nothing but swift and unrelenting action to usher in the greatest and most successful era in the history of our country. We have accomplished more in 43 days than most administrations accomplished in 4 years or 8 years, and we are just getting started. I return to this chamber tonight to report that America's momentum is back, our spirit is back, our pride is back, our confidence is back, and the American dream is surging bigger and better than ever before. The American dream is unstoppable, and our country is on the verge of a comeback, the likes of which the world has never witnessed and perhaps will never witness again.
Among those in attendance, the world's richest man, Elon Musk, who's leading Trump's Department of Government Efficiency. Well, U.S. President Trump said Ukraine is ready to come to the negotiating table over the Russia-Ukraine war. The American leader also said Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy was prepared to sign a rare earth minerals deal. This comes after the U.S. paused all military aid to Ukraine Monday. Zelensky's talks with Trump in the White House last Friday broke down in acrimonious exchanges.
Earlier today, I received an important letter from President Zelenskyy of Ukraine. The letter reads, Ukraine is ready to come to the negotiating table as soon as possible to bring lasting peace closer. Nobody wants peace more than the Ukrainians, he said. My team and I stand ready to work under President Trump's strong leadership to get a peace that lasts. We do really value how much America has done to help Ukraine maintain its sovereignty and independence. Regarding the agreement on minerals and security, Ukraine is ready to sign it at any time that is convenient for you. I appreciate that he sent this letter, just got it a little while ago. Simultaneously, we've had serious discussions with Russia and have received strong signals that they are ready for peace. Wouldn't that be beautiful? Wouldn't that be beautiful?
Zelenskyy earlier said he is seeking clarification on the U.S. military aid pause. He ordered his defense minister and other officials to hold talks with their American counterparts with the goal of maintaining a normal partnership with the U.S., crucial for truly ending Ukraine's war with Russia. Zelenskyy also expressed regrets over last week's spat with U.S. President Trump at the Oval Office.
Ukraine and America deserve a respectful dialogue and a clear stance from each other. especially when it comes to protecting lives during a full-scale war. Ukraine will always be grateful to the United States for all the support it has provided and continues to provide, support that helps uphold Europe's already fragile security. This is not just about our country, it concerns all of Europe.
An investor group supported by BlackRock has agreed to purchase a major stake in the Hong Kong-based company that manages ports on both sides of the Panama Canal. This $22.8 billion transaction involves CK Hutchison selling its port operations in Panama and other countries to U.S. and Swiss investors. The sale grants the consortium a 90% stake in Panama Ports Company, which operates key ports in Panama. The deal is seen as a strategic win for the U.S., aligning with President Trump's goal to reduce Chinese influence in the region.
And for that purpose, I am announcing tonight that we will create a new Office of Shipbuilding in the White House and offer special tax incentives to bring this industry home to America where it belongs. We used to make so many ships. We don't make them anymore very much, but we're going to make them very fast, very soon. It will have a huge impact. To further enhance our national security, my administration will be reclaiming the Panama Canal, and we've already started doing it.
Well, not everyone was cheering developments in the U.S. At the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, American Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak criticized aspects of big tech, taking issue with the increasing dominance of major tech companies and their influence on people's lives. Wozniak further voiced concerns about the use of artificial intelligence, particularly regarding issues of AI safety and misinformation. He also expressed concern about the trend of tech entrepreneurs like Elon Musk getting involved in politics.
I think that the skills of politics are very different than the skills for technology companies to have success. So in general, I don't know. It does make sense to run a government like a business, but I don't see that happening in the case of Elon Musk. Yeah. I mean, when you run a business, you look around and you look for a consensus and a sharing, and if half your employees feel one way and half the other way, you negotiate, you compromise, or you take one bit at a time. If you're looking to be efficient, one item at a time, that maybe we can manufacture a different way or get a different part from somewhere else, but you don't just say everything is out and start fresh. So I don't like what's going on in that regard. And all the big tech companies are just so big. It's like they own our lives. Not to mention some of the problems with AI, the deep fakes. I hate spammers. I hate the people trying to get your passwords and take all your money. I hate all this. And now they have one more tool. They have AI, so they can do a better job. And AI can trick you into things, and that's a method I'm not for. I believe in that things should be respected for their honesty. You can rely on them. You can count on them. And AI is already demonstrating that it hallucinates and makes things up.
We need to pause for a few reminders, but when we come back, we spotlight a crucial tax reform proposal that could reshape the Philippine audit system. This brief returns in a moment. Stay with us on BNC. Welcome back to Business Brief. One tax expert has long advocated for a risk-based, computer-assisted audit to replace the flawed manual system of the Internal Revenue Service, which often targets the same businesses while allowing major tax evaders, smugglers, and corrupt politicians to slip through. Instead of weaponizing tax laws against MSMEs and foreign investors, this reform aims to shift the focus to real financial crimes. To discuss this and the latest tax controversies, we are joined by Mon Abrea, Chairman and CEO of the Asian Consulting Group. Mon, welcome back to the show, and thank you so much for making time for us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Raine, after your news. Another news, yes.
Yes. You had been actually reacting offline to something that we talked about with the BCCP. But first, before we let you go, last month you said that you were just about to walk into a meeting with the BIR and the PEZA. Has there been any update on that meeting, especially on tax reform?
Well, we are happy to share that we will have a joint investment mission with PEZA, the Philippine Economic Zone Authority. This is to really attract more foreign investors. But you know, the mandate of BIR is really serious, and nobody will really be happy if BIR is knocking on your door. But their mandate is to audit, to collect more taxes. That's why the recommendation is not actually a personal recommendation, but a World Bank's recommendation long time ago. And I'm just resurfacing it since most of our foreign investors find BIR's intervention quite costly. So risk-based is something that has been there, and maybe it's time for us to look into it.
And you deal with clients not just here in the Philippines, but also abroad. So you're familiar with how much of the world has probably migrated to an automated BIR system. So the tax assessment is automatic. You
Correct.
don't have to negotiate or haggle.
It's hard
for a
to
lower
hide
tax.
income, in short. Unlike in the Philippines, you know, it's easy to hide income and just let BIR chase you.
So in this case, if the BIR actually did a full automation and all tax assessments are computerized, what would it mean for the Philippines? Would it actually mean that we increase our tax collections, or it would be decreased?
No, dramatically it will increase. Honestly, 10 years ago, Raine, I was estimating that probably what we are collecting around, at that time, it's less than 1 trillion. 10 years ago, I was thinking maybe we should be collecting 10 trillion, 10 years ago. And that's how much tax exposure or gap I can see in our tax system. That BIR is not able to collect simply because they're doing it manually. There's a bank secrecy that doesn't allow them to actually access the bank accounts of the richest and the most powerful in our country. And this discourages foreign investors. When they know that there's corruption, that tax evaders and smugglers are not prosecuted in a country where they will put their money, then they would have second thoughts. Why will I risk my money if I can invest elsewhere where it is more transparent and the government is more accountable?
But the tax leakages, you know, are not just coming from the graft and corruption happening at our tax collection agencies, but this pushback against an automated system isn't just coming from the BIR or the BOC.
Yeah.
It's also coming from the taxpayers, the big companies. Why is that?
Of course, if it will be automated, then it will now be difficult for an individual, whether you are the middle class or the top 1% richest Filipinos or individual in the country, it will be hard for you to hide your income. And even if you bring it to Panama or to any of these tax havens, it will be monitored because your bank accounts can be accessed. So this automation is a threat not just for the unscrupulous and corrupt examiners, but also for the real tax evaders, smugglers, money launderers, those who are enjoying all these loopholes in our tax system. So honestly, this will benefit BIR. This will help their tax administration to become more efficient, considering that 97% of our collection is based on voluntary. Imagine we are relying on whatever they want to declare, whatever Raine and Mon will declare. And it's up to BIR to chase us who among us is honest or not.
And we were talking with the BCCP, and some of the BPOs apparently are feeling singled out by this run after tax evaders program or any particular program that puts the heat on certain companies. Do you feel that there are certain companies or industries being singled out by the BIR?
Well, honestly, it's the feeling of every taxpayer being audited by BIR. Secondly, those who are bribing are the favorites. So if you're bribing examiners, therefore every year they would really spot or look after you because they know they will get something. But at the end of the day, I don't think that BIR is really just chasing after you. But the thing is, under this manual random audit, they end up auditing the same companies, and that's bad because it's very costly to be audited by BIR. Other than the fact that you have to hire consultants, it will interrupt your operations. And that's a loss of revenue for any company that will be subject to audit.
And therefore, Mon, what would be a good solution for this? Or maybe even a win-win solution? Is it time to employ AI, not just automate the tax assessment system?
Well, as recommended by World Bank, I think the risk-based audit is really a very good and palatable solution to all these loopholes or lapses in our tax system. The use of technology, AI may be, but again, right now we don't even do data sharing. Like, how come Pogos operated without paying taxes? They are approved, they have business permit from LGU, but they are not filing and paying any taxes to BIR. Because they don't share data. So I think data sharing domestically and with OECD globally, then that will give BIR upper hand to really chase after the big tax evaders rather than running after MSMEs who can barely make $1 billion or even 10 million, and yet they are being audited every year. So I think it's win-win for everyone, more tax collections, less cost or burden for MSMEs, and foreign investors will be delighted to invest in the Philippines because they know if they're compliant, BIR will not be chasing after them. Unlike now, as what you have mentioned, the BPOs are reacting. Why are we getting all these assessments? Because it's manual. The default of BIR is to disallow whatever they don't find at par with the standard. So the burden of proof now lies on the taxpayer. Again, that's costly. You need to prove yourself like a criminal that you are not guilty of tax evasion.
You pointed out foreign investments, foreign investors. We have Create More. We have, tax reform in process, probably not complete yet, but in process. We also have the Ease of Paying Taxes Act. Haven't these, media or, legislation or policies made traction yet in encouraging investment here in the Philippines?
Well, the good thing, Raine, is that we keep moving forward, that we never stop. We continue to improve. That's why we have Create More. And if you ask me, have they made already an impact? I think just letting the world know that we have legislated improvements or amendments to our existing tax incentives policies is already a sign that the Philippines is really ready to welcome foreign investments. With the RBE taxpayer service, we hope that our foreign investors will no longer be frightened or be interrupted by BIR audit, because it will really be a healthy relationship. Not that they are non-compliant, but they will be assisted in case there will be non-compliance. And with the ease of paying taxes, it's definitely for our MSMEs that they won't feel burdened that they have to pay huge penalties for any delay. It's practically a 50% cut or discount. So it's a huge relief for our MSMEs. But more than that, it's really, again, automating the system. So if you are to ask me what should the President, the Secretary should be doing if we really want more foreign investment, allocate a huge budget for this digital transformation of the BIR. Because it's not that they don't want it. They need funds to make sure it will happen, and it will really smoothen up the processes.
And which is unfortunate considering the United States had actually been funding that particular transition as well. But the BIR did mention that they are going to seek further funding for that initiative. Meanwhile, the businessman who is the friend to all businessmen, Donald Trump, he proposed the Ending Income Tax, Keeping Retirement Savings Act. Is that, it's a tax model shifting to consumption-based taxation. Is that something that would work with us?
Well, honestly, even for the U.S., it's a bit scary because it might be a dangerous path, considering that the U.S. relied or collected $3 trillion in income tax. So are they willing to forego it when their importation goods is around $3 million as well? Which means they need to impose 100% tariff to cover or to collect what they will give up in terms of income tax collection. While for the Philippines, it's a no-brainer. We can't go to that path. We can't even explore that, primarily because we are so much reliant on importation, especially of essential goods. So we don't even impose tariff. So if we impose tariff, then there will be more deficit. There will be more shortages in our rice, in our fuel, and whatever essential goods that our kababayans or Filipinos would have to need to survive. So I think relying on consumer tax is an ideal in principle, but we need to make sure that we can really collect as much taxes compared right now. Because right now, 60% of our collection is still based on income tax.
Shifting gears a little bit more, Mon, of course, transition credits being used. You mentioned fuel already. Transition credits being used in Asia to accelerate the move from coal to renewable energy or clean energy. Should the Philippines consider integrating such mechanisms in our tax policies to support sustainable development?
Definitely, Raine. It's something that we should include in a blueprint that we should, that the government should be looking at in terms of sustainability and climate action. Especially that we are a very vulnerable country to all this natural disasters. So we need to make sure that we incentivize businesses, and this transition credit can be either used as a tax deduction, a tax credit, or a offsetting mechanism by which they don't need to pay additional taxes. So definitely, it's a welcome idea for businesses and for foreign investors. But again, it should be part of a big plan, not just a piecemeal. Otherwise, we might end up amending or introducing new policies every now and then.
And of course, all these questions and the big picture, of course, will be available at the International Tax and Investment Conference near the end of the month here in Manila.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about that?
The reason why I'm in Manila. So we have the 2025 International Tax and Investment Conference with all the policymakers, the business leaders, and of course, our influencers who are making a lot of difference in terms of their sustainability and climate initiatives. So here we will not just talk about tax policies, but we will talk about the initiatives of different industry leaders on fashion, film, arts. We have AI, food and agriculture, then of course sustainable cities and communities, and the last, travel and tourism. We also have secretaries and other cabinet members who will be participating in a very important discussion. Again, this is not something that will happen or that we can achieve overnight, but it's an important discussion that we'll all have to be part of, especially if it involves tax policy.
I'm actually interested in the updates from the senior economists from the World Bank, and I would really appreciate getting insights from there so far. Mon Abrea, Chairman and CEO of the Asian Consulting Group, always a pleasure to have you, and thank you so much for sharing with us your insights and updates. Thank you. And as we've discussed, moving towards a smarter, risk-based audit system could create a fairer, more transparent tax environment while focusing enforcement on real financial crimes. Meanwhile, Philippine shares rallied for a third straight day, closing Wednesday higher alongside most Asian neighbors. The main index back to the 6,100 level, finishing up almost 1% to 61.21. That's thanks to an inflation reading falling, according to Bangko Sentral and analysts' expectations. Property led Wednesday's rally, while advancers continued to outperform decliners, 114 to 77. Value turnover improved to 7.3 billion pesos. The most active stocks led by Razon's port operator ICTSI, down 0.8%, while the Gokong Way's JG Summit share prices surged 8.5%. Meanwhile, in a major development for the Philippine mining industry, Nickel Asia and DMCI Mining have teamed up to explore building a nickel processing plant. The partnership signed March 4th, or yesterday, combines DMCI's engineering expertise with Nickel Asia's processing know-how. The two companies will spend the next few years evaluating technologies and securing ore supplies, even as the government considers limiting raw ore exports to boost local production. On the stock market today, Nickel Asia dropped by 0.8%, while DMCI Holdings gained 0.7%. Samirara Mining edged up 0.1%. At the foreign exchange market, the peso is currently trading at 57.57 to the greenback, strengthening further from Tuesday's close of 57.75. And that's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Raine Musñgi. Join us again tomorrow as we bring you the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business, only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel, always on top.